Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Kistler O'Brien podcast. I'm Tyler Trumbauer with Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection, episode number 2 of 2022. This year is going by quick already, getting set to turn to March already. But before we do, we want to have a conversation here in the month of February about something that we're going to be talking a lot about here at Kistler O'Brien and across the fire and life safety industry going throughout the upcoming months here in this calendar year. We're going to break it all down here this month. And to do that, we're excited to welcome onto the podcast from Lubrizol, Carl Ray, joining us here today. Carl, thank you so much for your time today, giving us a few minutes of not only your time and your expertise on the topics that we're going to discuss today.
Problem, Tyler. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's learn a little bit more about you, something we like to do all the time when we have guests outside of the Kistler O'Brien family. As I said there at the top, territory manager, what do you focus on in your role, and kind of what does that mean for the entire fire and life safety industry?
Sure. So I work for Lubrizol, and we're an advanced materials company. The division I work for is called Antifreeze, and our division actually invented CPVC piping for plumbing, industrial, and the life safety products that you all are working with, BlazeMaster. And we also came up with a UL listed antifreeze, so that's kind of part of our repertoire as well. I cover the Mid-Atlantic area. I work with folks like yourself, the installing contractors, mechanical engineers, code enforcement people, wholesalers, our plate partner manufacturers as well. So I kind of cover a good range of who I talk with on a daily basis. But I guess for today's purposes, we're talking about fire sprinkler and the new antifreeze requirements.
Absolutely. And you kind of jumped right into my second question right there. I like that as a guest, that you're able to get me into the transition right away. It makes my life as the host a little bit easier. So let's just expand on that a little bit, if you don't mind. You talked about, what you do, focusing on the different companies that Lubrizol partners with and works with within the industry, but going that step farther to the end user. So maybe just, at KOB, who we consider our customers, for their perspective, if they want to understand the pipeline, for a lack of a better term, no pun intended, of how you factor into everything from where the manufacturer's making products to where we're servicing, installing them, and obviously they're getting their people and property protected. How does Lubrizol fit into all of that and become part of that bigger piece of the puzzle?
Sure, it's a great question. So we're kind of the science and technology behind CPVC piping and also this antifreeze. So we're truly the advanced materials company that makes those products. We make a lot of different things. If you drove your car today, you use oil additives that were made by Lubrizol. If you use hand sanitizer and shampoo today, you use thickening agents such as carbon that are made by Lubrizol. So we make a lot of different things. But the division that I work for, again, Temprite, we are the science, the inventors of CPVC technology, and then also this really kind of revolutionary UL listed antifreeze that we're going to talk more about. With I guess the code requirements, we'll get into that further. We did what we do best. We realized that there was a need in market, and we made a world-class material that would fit the need. As far as I guess support for your customers and end users, I'm local in the area. We have national sales engineer that's local. We have quite a few experts on the team. So if there are questions, if there are any kind of hey, what about this material? What should I expect? You can certainly always reach me and reach out to me, and I'd be happy to kind of walk through any questions that come up. And if I don't have the answer, I know somebody's going to have one within my group. So
certainly. And you kind of dove into that as well with how we work together and what we can do for our customers. So we've kind of teased this a couple of times already here in the early going about the antifreeze solution, the new requirements as well. So kind of, since you are the subject matter expert here, can you kind of take us through what this entire landscape looks like, and then what the changes are on the horizon that our customers need to know?
Yeah, so this is an NFPA 13 requirement on a national level. So all antifreezes within a fire sprinkler system are going to need to be UL listed, right? There are not many options out there. I'm going to kind of talk about some differentiators between our material and some of the other materials out there as well. But basically, this was spurred from groups using antifreeze that really was problematic. So this kind of all came down from antifreeze that actually, um, uh, it was a catalyst. It was part of the problem of the fire. It actually made the fire worse in a catastrophic fire, I believe in Texas. So that's kind of what spurred all this. And NFPA realized that there really was truly need for a UL listed antifreeze that wasn't going to contribute to a fire, right? So that's kind of where this came from. The requirements going forward by September 2022, all antifreeze systems within fire sprinklers are going to be needed to be UL listed. So that is the hard deadline. I know that there's been some rumors out there that being pushed back, but that's not true. It's going to have to be that hard and fast date. So that is the deadline to get everything up to speed. Luckily, folks like yourself are getting out there. This little Brian is getting out there, educating their customers and making sure, hey, you're going to need to do this by September 30th, 2022. And really, you should want to, because as I said before, we don't want material within a fire protection device actually contributing to a fire, right? It's a life safety product. We want to make sure that it's doing what it's designed to do.
Certainly. Yeah, no, great point. And that's what we're trying to do here first with this podcast episode with you, and other, outreach we'll be doing with our customers throughout this coming weeks and months. Obviously, as I said, March is right around the corner here. And before we know it, it'll be September. It may seem like it's far away, but it's crazy how the times go by so quickly. So you mentioned that September 30th key date. There were rumors, like you said, that that could have been changed, but it's not going to be. So folks need to circle that date on their calendar. And that's like people like us are talking about getting in compliance. You mentioned it as well. So for our customers that have the solution in their fire safety system that is now not going to be code compliant when it comes around this time, what do they need to do to be compliant, to really be proactive? So not that it's, oh, next time there's an inspection coming up, we'll tell you that, and then there's an unforeseen cost, right? We're letting them know that, hey, you could get this done ahead of time or be prepared to budget for something like this. What do they need to do to get into compliance, either before that date, preferably, or at least by that date, to ensure that their people and property are protected, number one, and then number two, also to obviously not be out of compliance and in those, areas you don't want to be?
Sure, it's a system drain and flush, and then they're going to need to use a well-listed database like Freezemaster. It's as simple as that. And obviously done by a fire protection professional like yourselves, right? A couple things with this that are kind of important to understand is, in the past with antifreeze, right, you would have kind of a guess game of how much mix to use, right? So you would have installing contractors basically mixing in the back of a truck with a 55-gallon drum and not really understand the right concentrations. And again, could end up being a material that could contribute to a fire instead of doing what it was supposed to do. solution. It is an engineered product that is totally 100% designed just for this industry. One of the neat things too, it has a blue dye to it, so for installing contractors, they know exactly what's going into this piping system, right? They can see that blue dye coming through the system and understand that, hey, okay, I have this filled properly. It goes down to negative 12 degrees in this area. I think design day is maybe 10 degrees, 12 degrees in the greater Philadelphia area. If we get to negative 12, we probably have a much larger problem on our hands, right? So it is designed to go down to negative 12 degrees. We have the highest allowances for ordinary hazard piping as well. So I believe in a system you can use up to 375 gallons. Now, that doesn't mean a building. It's basically a valve. So a system is basically a valve, right? And one of the biggest things, and probably one of the main things that make this a superior engineered product, is that it's going to reduce metallic pipe corrosion. So in the past with these antifreezes, you ran into a lot of issues with corrosion, with the mix actually degrading the piping system. You're not going to get this with Freeze Master. So it's truly a unique engineered product. We feel it's the best on the market for what you're trying to do. A UL-listed antifreeze specifically designed for fire sprinkler solutions.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and obviously that's going to be our main gist right there, broken down in communications going out to our customers, in communications that will be on our website, our social media, obviously things that your team will be getting out there as well for not only your partners, but also the end users as well. And it is quite impressive that the industry can make pivots like this, something that you don't think needs to be adjusted. Obviously, it's sad that it took a mistake, not really a mistake, but a situation like that to make improvements, but it shows the adaptations that the industry can make, and something that's super important. So just a quick message to our viewers and listeners out there on this podcast. Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection, whether you're a customer of ours or not, is prepared to do this for you. Our staff is ready, prepared to be able to get you in compliance. As we said, September 30th will be here before you know it. So you'll want to get ahead of the plan date, and get us out there to your sites to be able to ensure that the next time that you do get inspected, you are in code compliance as well. And like Carl said as well, it's not just something to check that box because it's a new requirement. It's not like we're updating this just to update it. This is because we found some faults and we found a better solution for it to help do what it's supposed to do, which is minimize the damage from a fire and suppress it, and not in what we found here in this situation, potentially, inflame it even further to potentially, even further provide a risk to the end users, people and property. So, Carl, a question that I want to ask you, someone like yourself that works in this space, has been around the industry for a bit now, something that I kind of ask a lot of different folks across the episodes that we've done. And I think this topic we're discussing here today is kind of an important example of this, is how the industry can adapt and change and grow and evolve. How do you see the industry growing and changing? What do you maybe see as maybe the biggest trend, the biggest change, the biggest mover, if you will? I've had a lot of people take this question different ways. I'm always intrigued on how it goes. But what do you think is kind of that next step, that next big push in the fire and life safety industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have a great answer for it. We're an advanced materials company, right? And we're always gonna do best is make material, right? And if there's a need and a gap for something, we're probably gonna figure it out and make something that fits that. I think the industry always needs to look at trying to be better, and what can we do to make these buildings safe, right? I would think that over time you're probably going to see more push for sprinkled residences. I know that a lot of houses have been kind of grandfathered into that. But, that is probably something that would come up. And, it's tricky because you don't hear when these fire sprinkler systems work well, right? You only hear when something goes wrong, which is unfortunate. You should hear about the successes in the fire suppression industry. So, it's tough to point at cases like, hey, this product worked really well in this case, right? Well, it didn't make the news, so you're not going to hear about it, right? So it's tough to say. I would say, with our material obviously being a non-metallic system, look for maybe more non-metallic systems down the line, maybe push towards ordinary hazard instead of just NFPA 13. We're always going to try to make our antifreeze better. So maybe lower temperature limits down the line. But, those would probably be my guesses as to where the industry's going.
So maybe one of the changes we need to see down the line in the industry is better public relations for it, right? So that we're championing those success stories instead of hearing where the errors happened or maybe where it didn't suppress it as much as possible. So maybe they need better PR as well. But I like your answer as well. I know you preface it with saying it's not great, but I think it is interesting as well. And something that others have brought up on this podcast as well is the burgeoning area of residential fire protection, particularly with sprinkler systems, not only in multi-unit systems, but in unit and then in single homes as well. Certainly an area that I think folks are finding a bigger interest in it as well. So who knows what will happen, but that is something that we always just like to get everyone's perspective. And like I said, I know you, like you said, in advanced materials and things like that, but had an interesting perspective in what that answer may be for that question. So, well, I appreciate the answers to all of the questions today, Carl. I think you provided the exact expertise that we were looking for here for this month's episode of the KOB podcast. And I remind all of our viewers and listeners as well to contact us, kobfire.com as well, to be able to get your sprinkler system up to code compliance. September 30th, the days are ticking away already. We're closer to that date now than we were when we started this podcast episode. Just think about that, right, Carl? So that's how quick time is moving here. And we appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time here today and your experience and expertise on the matter. You said it much better than I could have, and that's why we invited you on. But again, thanks again, Carl.
Tyler, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you to all of our viewers and listeners as well for tuning in to this month's episode. If you missed any of our previous episodes, be sure to check us out on YouTube, Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection, or on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Search us, KOB Podcast. That'll do it for us for this month. Until next time, I'm Tyler Trumbauer with Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection.